Okay, and we'll get started. So we left off last time with an explanation. I did it very quickly because it was at the end of the class. So let me do it again now more clearly.
Zoom soon?
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you.
And that is because it's going to be relevant in the Maimer soon. And that is that the Gemara says, what is the reason that the Gemara gives why the receiving Torah at Har Sinai was incomplete? And the reason is because it wasn't done totally willingly. It was imposed upon them because Hashem held a mountain over their head. And he said, if you don't receive the Torah, then I'm going to drop this mountain. So because it was done against their will, it's not a complete acceptance. And therefore, in the times of Purim, that's when they needed to accept it, re-accept it in a more complete way. So we asked two questions about this. Good morning. Good morning. Question number one is that the whole idea is so strange. Here we talk about the greatness of the Yidden. They said Nasa v'nishma, and they were so committed. And here we're saying that it will all happen because Hashem held a mountain over their head, and therefore they had no choice. So we're taking away all that greatness that we always speak about, that Yidden accepted the Torah by Nasa v'nishma. That's question number one. Question number two, if the reason why Matan Torah was incomplete was because it was done having a threat over their heads, which was the mountain, so in the times of Haman, there was also a threat over their heads. But in those days, the threat was not the mountain, the threat was Haman and his decree. So what's the difference? So it's the same thing again. So we said the answer is like this, that we find in different sources, we spoke about this on Friday, that a mountain represents love, and it's used as a metaphor to describe love. And the simple explanation for that is, just like a mountain is, what is this, the earth, and there's the earth that's leveled, and then the mountain is where the earth extends from the earth higher, extends outside of the earth. Generally speaking, the feeling of love is also a feeling where a person extends himself and is drawn outside of themselves to another person. So the mountain is sort of some sort of a diagram that describes the emotion of love. That's why Avram Avinu, whose main attribute was love, there's a pasuk where Hashem says, Avram, the one that loved me. And the question is asked why he didn't fear Hashem, only loved Hashem. Because by Yitzchak it says, Yitzchak, the one that feared me. So the Alter Rebbe explains, Avram Avinu had love and fear of Hashem. Yitzchak had love and fear of Hashem. But Avram Avinu, his main and primary attribute was love. And Yitzchak's main and primary attribute was fear. So Avram Avinu, whose main and primary attribute was love, he described the Beis Hamikdash like a mountain, because a mountain is an expression of love. And that's what it means that Hashem held the mountain over their head. It means Hashem revealed the love that he has for the Jewish people, that they should feel it. There's a pasuk in Chumash where it says, Ahavti eschem omar Hashem. Hashem says to the Jewish people that I love you. And we know that the love for Hashem to the Jewish people as a whole and to each individual as an individual is an unconditional, infinite love, unlimited love. Yes, we sometimes don't feel it, we sometimes don't see it. It seems to be chas v'sholom sometimes the opposite, but that means Hashem is hiding his love. But in essence, even in the worst case scenario, Hashem's love for us is infinite. So when Hashem revealed that love, which means we were able to feel and experience his infinite love to us, then what did this do? It brought out within us that we should love him. And that's based on a pasuk, where there's a pasuk where it says, Kamayim haponim el haponim, kin leiv ha'odam el ha'odam. If anyone wants to look this up a little bit more detailed, you could look at chapter 46 in Tanya. It's an incredible chapter. It talks about how one can develop love for Hashem just by thinking of the love that Hashem has for us. And therefore, it's natural that if someone loves you and shows you their love and you feel their love, so it's natural, the natural reflex of the heart is to return that love. Like water reflects a face, that's how the one heart reflects another heart. It's not with other emotions. Like if someone has compassion on me for one reason or another, it doesn't mean therefore I'll feel compassion for them. It doesn't work like that. But with the feeling of love, it does work like that. And therefore, when Hashem showed us his love, we were overcome with love for Hashem, which means when the Yidden said Nasa v'nishma, it's not chas v'shalom, they were forced. They said it with the most incredible love that you can possibly imagine or not even imagine. But this love that they felt was really a reflection of Hashem's love. It's as if they were compelled to have that love. It was imposed upon them because Hashem revealed his love to them, and therefore their hearts, as if to say, had no choice. What happened in times of Haman? Did Hashem show the love to the Jewish people? The answer is no. Not only didn't show the love, but I explained last time that probably in the entire history of the Yidden, from the beginning of time until today, there was never such a time that Hashem's love was so hidden like in the times of Purim. And the reason is because there was a decree to wipe out every single Jew, men, women, and children from all over the world. In later times where there were terrible, terrible decrees, but it was limited to a certain country. And it didn't affect all the Yidden. So in one country, unfortunately, there were decrees. In another country, you didn't have freedom. And therefore, it wasn't the entire nation. And in fact, even those that had the decree were able to escape and run to a free country. But in the times of Purim, all the Jews were under the rule of Achashverosh, so they were all included in this decree, which means that also in Shamayim, in heaven, the decree was against all the Yidden. And that's why Hashem's love for us was not only hidden, we can say this was the most hidden ever to happen in history. And that's why Purim is represented by concealment. Esther is the one who's the hero of Purim, heroine of Purim, and her name is Esther. The Gemara says, where do we find Esther hinted in the Torah? By the pasuk, "V'nechi haster aster pana v'yemahu," which is concealment. So that means that what happened on Matan Torah didn't happen in the times of Purim. We can't say the Yidden loved Hashem because he loved them. On the contrary, Hashem concealed his love 100,000%. There was not a trace of love to be felt openly. And yet we showed to Hashem our love for him. So that love that we showed, that came from us. That's why the Matan Torah was completed in that time. That answers the question why receiving the Torah with a mountain over their head was not a negative thing, but yet it was incomplete. And in times of Haman and Achashverosh, that's when everything was completed. Now, you remember the question, when did the Yidden re-accept the Torah fully? So it was during the decree or after the miracle?
During.
So everything I explained now is during the decree. But the truth is that this is what it says in Chassidus. The simple pshat in the Megillus Esther is that it was after the miracle, which means they were so inspired by Hashem's kindness and Hashem's goodness and Hashem's miraculous salvation that they loved Hashem to the fullest. But if that's the case, it's almost like Matan Torah again. They saw Hashem's love, so they loved him. So therefore, Chassidus explains, no, it's more about before the decree was absolved, before the decree was canceled. And now the Rebbe again is explaining here that both are true. The completion of accepting the Torah came in two stages, in two phases. One is before the decree was over, when they were still under the decree, and the other is after the miracle. So before the decree, we know why they had that incredible love for Hashem, is because when the person is challenged, in other words, crushed, that brings out the essence. And the question of the Maimon was, well, what out after the miracle? What brought out the essence after the miracle? So the answer is also because they were crushed, not because Hashem was so kind to them. That wasn't the reason. They were crushed from the fact that after everything that happened was still in Gullus. And that's why they were crushed. And they were so crushed that it brought out their essence. And they have what? What?
It's the same. Like in both cases, the essence was through being cursed.
Right. It's the same that in both cases, the essence brought were being crushed. But the first case, they were being crushed because of the decrees. And the second case, they were being crushed in a time where things were good and things were free and there was no oppression, nothing was challenging them physically or spiritually. So why were they crushed? Just from the mere fact that we're still in Golus. Now they're going to explain, so why would that crush a person to the degree that it would bring out their essence? So we're on page 62, 63, where it says, well, in the English, the brokenness of exile on page 62. Is that an English word, the brokenness? Anybody here that is an English major? Brokenness? Or is that a Holy Torah word? Brokenness. I don't know, maybe. But anyway, it means to be broken and crushed from the fact that we're in Golus. The fact that you're not broken and crushed from being in Golus, even though they're enjoying prosperity, both in the physical, material, and also in the spiritual. Because the true desire of every Jew, and this is a desire that comes from the core, is that Sheyiyah Gila Lakus, is that godliness should be revealed in the world. That godliness should be revealed in the world. This matters, and it affects the entire essence. Every fiber of his being is affected by this, because that's a desire that comes from the essence. Which means that in general, even Begashmis, there are a lot of things we want, but not everything comes from such a deep place. So if a person wants something and they want it to be a certain color, okay, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it that way. If you want to buy a house in a certain location, or buy a house at a certain size, and you can't get what you want and you buy something else, okay. There are certain things that the desire touches you to the core, like the desire that a person has to live. So we know that a person will do everything and anything for survival, because that desire comes from the essence. So what the Rebbe is saying here is this desire that a Yid wants godliness to be revealed in the world, that comes from the essence. I don't know if I ever repeated this in class, but there's a story with the chassid of the Alter Rebbe. There's an interesting book. It's called Mea Sha'arim. It means 100 gates. It's basically 100 little small, some are stories, some are words of Torah, some are private Yechidus audiences, and it's 100 different sayings from the Alter Rebbe. So one of them is about Yechidus. There was a chassid, Rabbi Majeski, and he went into the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe said to him, "Vos is Gimel Aleph Tes," in Yiddish, which means, what is G-O-D? So the chassid stood still. The Alter Rebbe said a second time. Again, he stood still. He says, "No, why don't you answer me?" So he says, imagine such a question. What is God? He said, I don't know what to answer. So the Alter Rebbe says, and I do know what to answer. And he said, God is the absolute essence of truth. There's nothing else in the world that exists that it's as true as his truth. Then the Alter Rebbe says, Vos is an neshama. And again, he's quiet. Again, the Alter Rebbe asks him 3 times. Finally, he says, no, why don't you answer me? So he says, I don't know what to say. The Alter Rebbe says, and I do know what to say. And he says, an neshama is that which is passionate about the one that his existence is the only true existence, and other than him, nothing else exists in a true way. In other words, Hashem is the essence of all essences, the truth of all truths, and the neshama is the one that its passion is in Hashem. So that's really the essence of the neshama. And therefore, this desire that godliness should be revealed in the world comes from the essence of the show, the core of the neshama. And therefore, on page 64, 65, the fact that at the time of Golus, godliness is not revealed like it was in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. In the times of Beis Hamikdash, godliness was revealed. In the times of Golus, godliness is not revealed. In fact, that's really the definition of Golus that encompasses all the details of Golus. If one were to ask, how many things are different between Golus and Geula, how many things do you think would be in that list? One? What is it? Right. Okay, you got me. I really wanted you to say hundreds of things that we have on the list. But you're right. My next question would be, and all these hundreds of things are a result of one thing. So when it says there won't be hunger, there won't be competition, there won't be Yetzer Hara, there won't be any hate, there won't be any wars, there won't be this, there'll be this, and Beis Hamikdash, Yerushalayim will be united. All these things are all true, but they're all a result of one single change. I think the best mashal that comes to mind is of chas v'shalom, a perfectly healthy person, a person who is a high functioning person. God forbid has an accident and they're in a coma, and because of that, they're not talking and not walking, not going to work, they're not communicating with their family, they're not this, a whole long list of all the things that are wrong now, but it's all as a result of one thing, that they're unconscious. You find the right medication, and you bring the person back to consciousness, everything will fall back into place. And that's the world. The world in the time of Golus is concealed godliness. And as a result of that, all these things are not functioning properly. When Mashiach comes, godliness will be revealed. That's why there won't be any Yetzer Hara, there won't be any wars, there won't be any hate, there won't be any competition, there won't be any sickness, there won't be anything negative physically or spiritually, because godliness will be revealed. But the Frat, especially, so therefore if a person thinks about, my deepest desire is godliness should be revealed, and it's not revealed because we're in Golus. So therefore some people think that Golus is living outside of Israel. Geula is living in Israel. And once we live in Israel, geographically, we got it made. No, Golus is godliness concealed, and Geula is godliness revealed. So therefore, even years ago, there were people who moved and lived in Eretz Yisrael. It was still godliness concealed. And even today, where Baruch Hashem, millions of Yidden live in Eretz Yisrael, and we're definitely so much closer to Mashiach. But until the Beis Hamikdash is built, godliness is concealed. Because that's the brain and the heart of the universe through which Hashem's presence is revealed in the world. So therefore, that alone crushes the person to the core. Now we'll do the bracket here. The Frat, and especially if a person would meditate on what it says in the Gemara, every person, if he's living in a time that the Beis Hamikdash was not rebuilt, he should consider it's as if this was the time that it was destroyed. What's the logic behind that? Why was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed? Because we weren't worthy. If we were worthy today, it would have been built today. Which means the fact that we're not worthy today for the Beis Hamikdash to be rebuilt means that had the Beis Hamikdash been in existence in our generation, it would have been destroyed just as well because we're not worthy. Yeah.
When I read it in English, I feel like there's a bit of a paradox though, because, for example, in the summer, during the 3 weeks and everything, like we're told to tap back into as if it had been destroyed in our days. And in general, like I remember in Jewish Home we read this thing about how some people really don't listen to music at all, unless it's like 3 instruments, because they're still mourning the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. So
Right.
isn't it ideal for us to feel like it was just destroyed in our generation?
Right. It is.
But then it's saying that also it's not a negative thing. Sorry, maybe I read it in the wrong tone.
No, it's not a negative thing to feel that it was destroyed.
Okay.
But unless you ask a different question, then how do we talk about simcha and being happy? And how could you be happy when the Beis Hamikdash was just destroyed in front of your eyes? There's a famous sikha. This is a recording that I must have heard 1,000 times. They played everywhere, anywhere. It's a sikha that ever talks about this subject, and he's talking about doing everything you possibly can to bring Mashiach, and then he describes the scenario. Imagine that you would be living in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, and you're watching with your eyes how they're being lit on fire, starting to burn it, and you could do something to stop it. You would do everything within your power. If you're watching it burning, of course you would do everything with your power. So the Rebbe said, it's really happening now, so do everything within your power now to have the third Beis Hamikdash. On the other hand, the same line that I said, but it's Yud Beis Tammuz today. It's supposed to be a Yontif. It's supposed to be a Simcha. So first of all, Yidden are already accustomed to having paradoxes in their lives. But the Rebbe wants to explain, since the times of the Arizal, and even more the Baal Shem Tov, and every generation progressively, there's a stronger emphasis on Simcha. And the reason for that is because all this is true. But so what's the, therefore what? Okay. It's the Beis Hamikdash is being destroyed now. Therefore, what? So one therefore could be, therefore, I should be crying my head off. Let me take a handkerchief, maybe a towel, and just cry to no end because Beis Hamikdash is being destroyed. Or therefore, I should do everything I possibly can to stop it from happening. So if a person walks by a house and God forbid sees a house on fire, and not only that, you actually see somebody on the 3rd floor holding 2 babies in her hands and screaming for help. So what should we do? Should we cry or should we run to do something about it? Yeah, you can cry later. Right now, don't waste even a split second. Do everything you possibly can to save these 3 lives. If you can't do it yourself, call the fire department, get whatever you can, call people, get water, but do something. So that's number one. But one of the things that we need to do to bring Mashiach is to have that emunah and bitachon that his coming is imminent, which that is expressed through simcha. So being that now we're living in a time that was so close to the third Beis Hamikdash, therefore now is a time where we can think about, it's the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, but this serves as a catalyst to do everything we can and to think about the fact that Mashiach's coming is imminent and we'll soon have the Beis Hamikdash. The more you're pained, the more you're hurt of the absence of the Beis Hamikdash, the more simcha you feel when you get the Beis Hamikdash back. So therefore, it could work both ways. But it's interesting to note, this mimer was said in 1981. And that was the year that the Rebbe introduced that the time has come that we have to call out to Hashem with Ad Mosai and demand that we want Mashiach. So first of all, if a person thinks about the fact that godliness is concealed, that's enough of a reason why they feel crushed, especially if they think about the fact that I'm partially responsible, because if I would do whatever I can, I could turn this around. From this in itself is an ganzen zu treiselt kosses. This makes the person completely shook up and crushed to the core. So therefore, the Rebbe is concluding, we'll see more details, but the conclusion is that there were two stages of being crushed in the ties of Purim. One, when they were crushed, when they were decrees, they can't daven, they can't do bris milah, they can't put on tefillin, they can't keep Shabbos and Yom Tov. So therefore, they were crushed, and they were being threatened with their lives, so they were crushed physically and spiritually. After the decree, and everything was so good, they were still crushed from the fact, just the fact that we're in Golus. We're still not in a state where godliness is being revealed, where it's supposed to be revealed through the Beis Hamikdash. So even then, when they saw this incredible miracle, but they still didn't have the Beis Hamikdash. How long did it take the Beis Hamikdash to be built? After this story, anyone know? Approximate what? That was. It took. That's how it took to build. But it was 3 years later when they started building the Beis Hamikdash. So this happened, mamash, at the end of the 70 years of Golus.
I wonder if the second Beis Hamikdash were they able to compile enough of a city to writing down Korban and everything so that they could start doing spiritual Korbans.
You're saying when was it done exactly?
When was it? When was even though I know it was finished, compiled later on, when did they get to have enough, I guess, that I don't know.
To have a full sitter.
Yeah.
Good question. I have to research that. The history of prayer. What about a tzaddik, who in his life there's gila, of course, there is God that is revealed? So that's the next paragraph.
Rabbi, I have one question.
One, Baruch Hashem. Okay.
In terms of the revelation of the Shekinah from the two temples, was it different? Was it the same?
Officially, it was less in the second temple than the first. There were 5 things that we had in the first temple we didn't have in the second. And that was an indication that even though the Shekinah was revealed, because we had a Beis Hamikdash, but it's still not the same as the first. In fact, we didn't have the Aron and the Luchos. They were hidden during the first, so they were hidden because of the fact that it was going to get destroyed. But when the second came back, it didn't come back. And altogether, there were 5 items that were lacking. And being that every item that was there was part of what established and that constructed what brought godliness into this world. So when something's missing, so the Gila Likus, the godly revelation, was also less. The reason why I said officially is because there's always an explanation in Chassidus that in some ways there was something greater in the second over the first. One of the things which is great about Chassidus is you never give it to one side more than the other. There's always an explanation. There's an advantage in the sun over the moon, but there's an advantage in the moon over the sun. There's an advantage in this sphere over that sphere, but there's an advantage of those people who learn all day over those who work all day, but there's an advantage of those who work all day over those who learn all day.
In seminary, Rabbi Shimon,
Yeah.
always hear him say, you bring up a 2 point, and he'd say, so which one's better? And we'd always we look at him you don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
every time, we would always get that.
Chassidim always say this in a sort of in a humorous way, that you would learn Chassidus when Purim comes around. Purim is coming soon. So the Alter Rebbe explains how Purim is greater than every single Yom Tov throughout the year. It's greater than Pesach and Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Simchas Torah. There's nothing like Purim because of A, B, C, and D. A few weeks later is Pesach. He starts learning a Maimer on Pesach. Pesach is greater than all the Yom Tovim, greater than Purim and Chanukah and then it comes Shavuos. Shavuos is greater than. So how could they all be true? And the answer is, it's like the organs in the body. Every organ has a certain advantage. And in terms of that advantage, it's superior to the rest of the body. What would the body be like, chas v'shalom, without hands, without feet, without eyes, without nose? Each organ contributes something. And in that area, yes, it is superior to everything else. No one has that advantage. So every Yom Tov, even if one that's greater than the others, but there's something in the others that this one doesn't have. And that's how everything is complete. So what happens to a tzaddik? He's somebody that godliness is revealed in his personal world. So what is he crushed for? Or is he maybe not crushed? So the Rebbe says, no, even a tzaddik is also crushed. Even if he's in a very high level. And you know how high of a level we're talking about? Shemer es legila lekus, godliness is revealed to him. Bedugmas, gila shoyb is manabayis. He's such a tzaddik that godliness is revealed to him in his personal life in a way which is equivalent to the light of Hashem that was revealed when the Beis Mikdash was standing. And one of those people was Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. If you look at footnote 113, it says that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, during his lifetime, he experienced revealed godliness in his personal life like Jews experienced during the time of the first Beis Mikdash. So why would he be crushed? The fact that it's only in his personal life, but in the rest of the world, godliness is not revealed. Muchach, that is an indication. Shagam hagilu shemer esla, even the godly light that's shining in his personal world is gili mugbal. It's a limited light, because had this been an unlimited light of Hashem, then it wouldn't be limited to him; it would be all over the world. The Geshemer Gilu Eres of Abligvul, if God's light, which is infinite, would shine, then this light would shine b'chol mokim, in every place. If there's one place, even pina nedachas, some remote corner and a place in the world that godliness is not revealed there, is v'nei shagili gam b'mokim shul meir gilu mugbal. The fact that there could be a place at the end of the world that there's no godliness there, that is an indication that even in my little world where godliness is revealed in a complete way, it's not complete. Had it been complete, it would be so unlimited that it would be shining in the entire universe. And this idea is expressed in a maimer that the Alter Rebbe brings from the Zohar. There's a sefer called Tikkunim, but it's also it's a part of the Zohar. It's called Tikkuni Zohar. It's a separate book, but it's called Tikkuni Zohar. And what does it say there? Even if there be one tzaddik, that he would return and do tshuva in his generation in a complete way, Mashiach would come. What does that mean? It means al yedei tshuva shleima, if somebody would do this complete tshuva, page 67, 68, they would draw down this infinite light of Hashem. And once the infinite light of Hashem shines, if it's truly the infinite, it would be so infinite, it would shine to the whole world. And that is the coming of Mashiach. That means Mashiach will be there. So the fact, she'ein meir etzla gili atzmas ein sof, so the fact that the essence of Hashem, which is absolute infinity, is not shining, even though he has so much godly light. But the fact that it doesn't have the essence, he's totally broken from that and crushed and cusses. In the parentheses, the Rabbi says, Al derech hayedua shechayla begematria memtes. The gematria of the word chola is 49. What does chola mean? A sick person. So Chassidus explains, what does it mean? It's known that there are 50 gates of wisdom. And that's why for the Yidden to receive the Torah, they had to count and had to be a 50-day period from when they left Mitzrayim till they received the Torah. We count 49, but the Torah was actually given on the 50th day because there are 50 gates of wisdom. So we had to count 49 days, and on the 50th, we reach the 50th gate, and then gates of wisdom open up and we could receive the Torah. And there are other places where we find the number 50 as a significant number because it corresponds to the 50 gates of wisdom. So what's 49? Why is Chola 49? Somebody has 49 gates of wisdom, but they're lacking the 50th, then when it's nature of a person that if chas v'shalom, there's something that they're craving for, and they can't have it, their craving is so strong and so deep to the point that they could become sick. And it's sick from not having what they want. And when we find a story like this in Klippa, which is a story in Gemara of a man that saw this woman, and she was a married woman, and he had a desire for this woman. And of course, she was married, so it was not someone that he could be with. And he became sick, and finally became so sick that the doctor says, if he's not going to have what he wants, then he's going to die. Okay, so he came running to the rabbis that the family, that his life is on line, he's going to, God forbid, die. Is it okay to ask them, in other words, maybe this woman should get divorced so that he could be able to live? And of course, the answer was, chas v'shalom. It's his problem, and he has to take care of it. And if that's where he's at, that's his thing. But what do we see here? That a person has a craving for something. It's in Shir Hashirim, I use the term chaylas ava. I'm sick with love for Hashem, which means the love for Hashem is so strong that the person could become sick because I want to be connected and I can't reach him because he's so far from me. So imagine a person has 49 gates of Kedusha, which is wow, amazing. But because he doesn't have the 50th, he is B'gematria Chayla. He still is feeling the same thing because it's not complete. And that's the neshama, the part of the soul that's totally connected to Hashem, that it wants one thing, godliness revealed. And as long as godliness is not revealed, then he's lacking. This is connected to another thing, and this is what the Tzemach Tzedek said. The Rebbe was the one who organized Hayom Yom, so he put this piece in the end of Hayom Yom, the last thing, which is interesting because the ends and the beginnings, they usually incorporate everything that's in all the details. So obviously this is a sort of, in some way, the culmination and the expression of the whole Hayom Yom. And what does it say? Tzemach Tzedek said that from time to time, when the Alter Rebbe was in a state of dveikus, like he was very concentrating on godliness, they heard him say these words: Ich will the garnish. There's nothing that I want. I don't want your Gan Eden. I don't want your Olam Haba. I want nothing else but you yourself. I'm saying it like I'm telling you a story. But the Alter Rebbe, when he said it, he was touched to the core. That he said that he wants to be connected to the essence of Hashem, which means even somebody who has levels of godliness, and he has Olam Haba, and he has Gan Eden, and he has all these amazing levels of godliness revealed to him, but because I don't have the essence of Hashem, the Alter Rebbe would say that all this is nothing to me. I want the essence. And of course, to get connected to the essence, that would mean, chas v'shalom, the person would pass out. So therefore, it was a craving that couldn't be fulfilled. When the Alter Rebbe was arrested, the Alter Rebbe had a certain condition, that the skin on his nose, the flesh would peel, and I guess it would like fall apart. And the doctor says they can't explain it medically. The only way it can be explained is that he has a certain desire, a certain craving that can be fulfilled, and that's causing this reaction in the body. So when the Alter Rebbe is arrested, and of course, what do they accuse him with? They accuse him that he wants to take over the government. He wants to make a revolution and become the king of Russia. So one of the things that they used as evidence that that's what he wants was, look at this condition. And the doctors say this is a result of the fact that he has a craving for something that he can't get. And that's proof that he wants to become the king and he can't get it. The real truth was that he wanted to connect to the king, which is Hashem, and he couldn't get it. I mentioned in another class that the picture we have from the Alter Rebbe is a very accurate picture. And how do we know this? Because the Tzemach Tzedek, who grew up with the Alter Rebbe, he saw this picture. And he testified that it's true and it's accurate. Not only accurate, he said it's as precise as could be. And he said that this condition, Alter Rebbe, we don't see it in our picture, because the pictures we have is a copy of a copy of a copy, and things are not clear. But apparently in the original picture, he said you can even see on the Alter Rebbe's nose that condition that he had. He also put that into the picture. So obviously he was very precise. So this is where it came from a desire that can be satisfied. So imagine here you have a tzaddik that has godliness revealed, feels godliness, sees godliness, hears godliness, a person who lives on a higher spiritual plane. But because I don't have the essence of godliness, and that's because if I would have, then the whole world would have been changed by now. That brings out this craving and this desire that the Alter Rebbe says, everything I have is insignificant to what I really want to have. The next paragraph is the real, punchline. Well, the Rebbe says these words. By day, Shoyin Nishma Loshen Zeh Ma'atman Azoken, being that the Alter Rebbe said this, and from the language that's written, Nishma means that it just happened once in specific times. It looks like it was a pretty common and regular occurrence that from time to time, the Alter Rebbe would just burst out with this emotion and say these words. But especially if it was publicized by the Tzemach Tzedek to all of us, that means this empowers all of us that we can be the same way, that all we want is Atzmos should be revealed. Now this needs to be explained a little bit, but based on what it says here, it's as if every one of us could reach this level, that we have a craving for the essence of Hashem, and the craving is so strong that as long as we don't have that, we're crushed. And therefore, how could we expect ourselves to be on that level? Because the Alter Rebbe was on that level, and he paved the way. We know tzaddikim, when they do something, they open the door, they break the ice, or they pave the way, and now it becomes easier for all of us to do this. But this needs to be explained a little bit better. What does it mean that this is relevant to us? It's not explained in the Maimer, but I'll try to explain it based on other sources, what this means. But the Rebbe is actually telling us that we have to shout Ad Mosai, we have to scream and beg and plead Hashem to end this galus, because the essence, that's really what we want. Our real essence is screaming and craving for godliness to be revealed in a way that the whole world will have godliness revealed, not just in a limited place. To be continued. We'll stop here on page 68, 69. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Ariella, can I give you something? Chava, do you see her every day? All the time?